Joining us now is the president and CEO of New York's independent system operator, Richard Dewey. Richard, thank you very much for joining us. The report, 141 pages. It's long, it's well done, it's complicated. What for the non-power professional out there, what is the conclusion of your report?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me. The conclusion of the report really is when you look at the readiness of the power grid within New York State, we're dealing with a lot of factors. You mentioned AI, large load growth, new demand coming onto the system. That's a big part of the challenge. We're also dealing with an aging generation fleet. We got one of the oldest generating fleets in the country in and around New York City. And as we've been dealing with some of these policy changes that have been driving us away from fossil fuels towards renewables, we're just in this, we're at this inflection point, really, that if we don't take some action now to start addressing some of our supply issues in and around New York City, we're going to be deficient. And what that means to be deficient is the risk of a reliability issue is greater than we've established our standards to be.
So what's the first thing that you would do? You help run the grid, but you're not in charge of policy. If you were in charge of policy, what's the first thing that we should do?
So the trigger for this report was a number of generators in New York City and Long Island notified us this summer that they plan to leave service. They want to exit for economic reasons. They no longer want to participate in the markets and they want to deactivate. So one of our responsibilities when that happens is to do the analysis, to do the studies, to see if we can continue to retain reliability after that happens. And what we found in this instance is if these generators were allowed to leave the system, if they were allowed to deactivate, we wouldn't have enough resources on the system starting next summer to be able to maintain reliability. Now, there's some other projects under development that are coming in. There's some transmission lines that are under construction that are not done yet. So minimally, we've identified that we need to keep these generators in service until those projects are completed.
Can you force them to stay operational? And for the non-power professional out there, how can a power plant just say, we're out, we're done?
It's based on economics. It's whether they're making money with the current pricing environment. It's the age of the facility and if they have to do big capital upgrades. So our organization does the analysis, the studies, but we're independent. We cannot compel them to run or force them to remain in operation. New York State as an entity has some powers from the Public Service Commission that could do that. The Department of Energy could also do that. What we will do and what our team will do is we'll try to come up with an economic solution that will incentivize them to want to stay into service until some of these newer projects can be completed. On the longer duration, some of this load growth that you talked about, when you start looking 4, 5, 6 years into the future, even if these plants stay in service, we've identified that we're going to be deficient probably by about the end of the decade.
Yeah.
So the time it takes to build new facilities, this is really a call to action by our organization. It's time to start now. We've got to thinking about new development. We've got to bridge the gap as the fleet ages, but we also got to prepare for this economic development that we all see on the horizon.
If I'm in New York City, if I'm in Manhattan, I should say, I don't want to say New York City. If I'm in Manhattan and I look across the East River, I look at the Astoria Generating Company. And again, we got viewers in California and Texas and all over the world. So they're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a giant power plant in Queens, New York. And when I look at its capacity, Richard, it's hundreds of megawatts. It's tens of thousands of homes worth of electricity. It is one of the ones, I think, from reading your report, that is asking to be deactivated. What happens if that power plant, just one of a few, shuts down?
Well,
what happens?
Yeah, what happens is, when we think about reliability, it's what's the likelihood that we're going to be able to maintain power for everybody in the peak load situations, right? So it's the hot summer days when they're doing lots of air conditioning. Increasingly, it's the super cold winter nights when heating demand and demand for natural gas is stressing the system. So we plan the system to really perform in all scenarios and addressing those peaks. So if it deactivated today, probably nothing would happen. But as we get into next summer and we start hitting those peak load conditions when demand is at its highest, that's when we have identified that we wouldn't be able to guarantee the level of reliability that consumers rely on. And it's just again.